Genetic DNA. Did you know it has consciousness? All DNA holds information. To get real specific, a singular double-stranded DNA molecule holds 215 petabytes, or better understood as 215 million gigabytes of information. We have 46 DNA molecules, mind you. In this understanding, could you even imagine the amount of information your entire body holds? Let us get clear on what exactly is held in our DNA, information-wise. Specifically, it is seen as a mechanism which contains instructions for an organism to develop. Therefore, it also includes its survival mechanisms and reproductive process. Interestingly, they control the production of your entire body, from birth to dust. From the color of your eyes and hair to our bodies, and our body shape and skin, our makeup, DNA we all commonly know and accept and known to be passed down include all sorts of things. This can include diseases, disabilities, habits, behaviors, addictions, and beliefs. Why is this? To adapt to our environments, this is a process of our being attempting to survive in a time where it feels its survival is threatened. In real, applicable example, many studies were done with rats, from having them listen to bells or scents before then shocking them. They did so many traumatic exposures. It really ranged from the studies, but all these were done in the name of science, and although we're not here to debate the correct or incorrect ways of this, we're only here to look at the specific studies and understand how this introduces DNA pass-downs, pretty much, in the most real-life and applicable way. So, in today's lesson, we're going to be seeing a study done by Carey Ressler from Emory University. He was a neurobiologist and psychiatrist in Atlanta, Georgia. He conducted a study to train laboratory mice to smell the fear of acetophenone, a chemical said to have a similar scent to almonds or cherries. Exposing the male mite to the exposure of the scent, he would then shock them during the same time. Soon, they learned to associate the smell with the pain of the shock, causing a shudder of fear to go through the mice whenever the smell would appear, regardless of if they were shocked or not. This was studied to be passed down through generations of the children of mice. Grandchildren were still showing the same reactions, even those who were conceived through vitofertilization from the male sperm had similar reactions to the acetophenone. Additionally, brain structure changes occurred as well, such as more neurons that produced a receptor protein known to detect the odor compared to the controlled mice and their children, who had a significantly lower brain muscle. You could almost see them. These neurons and pathways and receptors are quite literally like muscles, and the bigger that they are, the more used and active they are. So additionally, the brain structures that changed, the occurrence of these brain structure changes, received signals of information from the receptor proteins of the scent involving the processing of fear in an increased way, as all these parts of their brain were shown to increase in size. Thus, this study showed through sperm genetics of not only our physical makeup, but our beliefs or fears are passed down to our children and generations to come. This realization alone should open the understanding and possibilities of healing on a multitude of layers. Let me give you an example before further exploring on this topic. In a family where alcoholism is common, this would be someone who picked up the coping habit of drinking to solve their pain somewhere along the way. In this, your neural pathways will begin to form a link of the memory of pain, the feelings and sensations and chemicals that you produce in your body, and in this, it will link it to, in this case, alcohol. This is because there is a direct link of habit and neurons, and if you ever look up neuroplasticity, it talks about how the brain will form certain links, and we can choose if we become conscious of these links and what way they form and how much they form. So this is passed down through your genetic coding to your children, who will also experience now the neurological link of pain and the solutionizing numbing power of alcohol, whether they have actually been exposed to alcohol or its capabilities in this life. This extends way past our parents and direct family, and this is actually what needs to be understood about generational curses, quote unquote, or trauma. None of these, what we call curses or repeated trauma, is from anything outside of our own choices. From our family's choice to perpetuate a cycle, effects formed and a choice was made. A choice at any time allowed to be undone and rewritten according to what is true and in alignment to this very given moment. The external is only a manifestation of the energies already at play. So what energy do you want to experience in the physical? Create more of that in your own life, and through that, DNA is changed. The vibratory rate alters, and your attraction point is changed through that as well. You, in that simple action, changed your entire life and generations to come, all by a singular choice. So you, in that simple action, gained, for some, this name of generational curse breaker. This is actually where this phrase or name came from. It's because through those generations, you stopped a genetic predisposition from occurring further. You quite literally rewrote your own DNA. How magical do you feel? So, to continue on, another example could be an allergy or a behavioral pattern that left an effect on the being. All things that are manifested, including them, the behavior pattern, right, is energy wishing to be consciously acknowledged and experienced. This is not limited to the bad, but this is also the quote-unquote good side of energy, aka the role of positive and negative energy. So, for example, someone who may have grown up with their emotional needs being met often, it became very important for them to make sure their emotional needs are met, and they're conscious of that side of them. They're doing what they can in a healthy manner for them and those around them. This is where a person's DNA, who was most likely subjected to that environment, not only from the actual direct experience of their parents treating them in that way and teaching them, but also from their parents living that life themselves, being consciously and emotionally vulnerable with themselves, that had passed this DNA down to make up a more healthy pattern of emotional acknowledgement and connection. In this, that was in the DNA, rather than, let's say, a suppression energy. So this offspring will then carry with ease the emotional regulation and acknowledgement, regardless of the environment that it actually grows up in. With that being said, on the other hand, another child who grows up with parents who didn't believe in emotional expression, and so the DNA passed down is at the vibratory rate of suppression. This suppression coding of DNA is making up what is the child, what we see as the child. Now, in the time of the child being born and the upcoming years of its life, let's say this child suddenly meets someone who becomes their main caretaker pretty much and is completely different from their parents. They instead are healthy and accepting of their emotions and emotionally vulnerable. This causes a war within the child's ecosystem, pretty much. I call it an ecosystem. We'll get on that in a little bit, don't worry. But this is a war in the neurological system because the pathways have already been linked of life and suppression of emotions. Those two are linked together. There is no such thing as being able to get their needs met as well as giving their emotional vulnerability out there. So this child's ability to access its emotions will be very, very hard in comparison to the ease of the child of the last example. Let's not stop there though. Instead, with this, we can see how there is a DNA coding that is no longer beneficial to the child's survival. Growth would rather come from experiencing emotional expression. So, through the experience of the literal practice, the habit created by this person, of them being emotionally expressive, they learn a new way of living. Both in the human collective form and in the smaller parts of the DNA, which is learning all over again, this child has to do things in a new way. So, quite literally, every part is learning all over again how to live. This child may at first find a safe spot, but this can look like whatever it needs for it to feel okay to emotionally express. At first, it may be locked up in their room on their bed with some stuffed animals or a pet. Then maybe they get more comfortable expressing themselves and they may go to a person, maybe that caretaker, who's emotionally vulnerable now. In both of these examples though, with the children, the alcohol, and any of this, all of these examples, it is to be noted, neither the people, behaviors, or means used, the coping, are in the wrong. None of them. For this topic today, I want you to throw out everything that you know about good and bad out the window. Instead, I ask you to adopt a new truth, a new perspective, and begin to see why it is very true that they aren't wrong. They are just doing all they can do. Every singular atom, cell, part of your body, as well as the universal cosmos at large, are doing their absolute best in protecting and keeping you safe. Through that realization, there's also something that we have to add in there. Not every part of you has the understanding and consciousness that you do. This is like expecting a toddler to solve your drug addiction. It's not right, and they have nothing close to the experience, wisdom, knowledge, any of it that someone who had gone through that and came out on the other side a different person would. So instead, you have to see all these parts within yourself as well as quote-unquote externally as things that you once were. these conditions that were once in place may no longer serve you, and so it's okay for a change. In the practice of rewriting and practicing a new mindset, a new belief, and a new perception, whatever this may be, it's through your actions, your words, and your energy that will only be a byproduct of what your beliefs already are, if that makes sense. It's through your everyday perspective and beliefs that you do this. It's not... You can try and make an action, but without the correct perspective of the action, correct meaning one that's in alignment to what you're trying to achieve, it's not going to achieve anything of the sorts. It's about the energy you're putting into things. It's much more just vibration than the actual physical. The physical is only a manifestation. So, through the vibratory practice of choosing what to vibrate at, whether that's I choose to feel at peace regardless of what's going on around me, or I choose to feel like I'm important regardless of who tells me I'm not, those types of things. Or I choose to feel safe even though everything around me is showing me that I should not feel safe. It is things like that that you can rewrite and change your entire being. It is okay to change. Healthy change is done by not denying, but rather embracing that which is no longer working and seeing why it's not working anymore. How can we still get those needs met? And in what way do we want to get those needs met? In a way that would be more harmonious to not only the physical being that we are experiencing our consciousness in, but also the consciousness at large that we still need to tap more into. This is such a wide topic, and I really love how simple and yet complex DNA really is. It can be simplified, and yet it holds such complexity. So, yeah. So, it quite literally changes the experience of which has been coded, ingrained into your DNA. A traumatic time turns into one of gratitude. Over time, not overnight. There is no rush, and the time of those experiences being tragic to your being is just as essential in the learning process as it is for you to find the gratitude in that same exact experience. It is like when you see a block, okay? And if you were to only see it from one direction, right? This is where the dimensions come in, right? Like a circle on the first dimension looks nothing like the second and nothing like the third. On the first, it's just a line. The second, it's an actual, like just an actual circle or square, whatever it may be, a shape. You get my point. Circle, square. In both of these, they will be different. That's what I'm trying to explain. They will show you a different perspective and more of itself in that explanation. And neither of them are wrong. That first dimension of the square or circle, both are lines, but neither are wrong. And in the third dimension, you see so many different sides of it. It has volume now, right? So it's the gratitude, the sorrow, the trauma, all of the different parts that make up something. It's not just one, and we should never try and make it just one. To value each of them is where quite literally the opposite of suppression. It's oneness, it's connectivity. It's that choice of oneness. And so, in that place of learning and finding gratitude and feeling whatever you may be feeling, that is what changes it. So regardless of your age, how many experiences, ancestors, connections, or traumas that make up your being, at the end of the day, it is a choice of consciousness in the here and now. At any point, you can decide to embrace, and in that embracing, you can choose what you want to do with yourself, whether you want to add more to that vibration, or you would like to alter and transmute that vibration into a different, more harmonious one. Your DNA does not dictate the way your life should go when talking about things that are in true disresonance. DNA does not dictate what is to become, but rather it is only that which has already been. We came into these bodies for a reason. The sex we chose, to our family line, to the actual environment of where we are growing up when we are young. We came into these bodies for a reason. That was our playing cards to continue our game out. In that lies the choice to continue and accept the way things are, with no choice as for why, or why they existed, or why they're even still in place, or the choice to openly question and accept whatever comes across, and through that, natural change occurs. I'd like to add, for those who are worried about not knowing that which makes you up, whether it be your ancestors or the actual experiences of your childhood, or things like that on like the minuscule scale, I want to remind you of something, or make you aware. You already exist. That means you are the manifestation of the DNA energy which has been passed along from those before you and the current you. All that you need to do is to consciously explore yourself. With that being said, if you're interested in connecting with the roots of what makes you, you can do many things that can involve going to your homeland, visiting the land, drinking or bathing in the water, chatting with those of a similar background or ancestry from where you came up. These can all tap us back into the vibrations which already exist within our DNA. So, to help us bridge the understanding of DNA and vibrations, understand everything that makes up your body is essential. It would be helpful for you to understand, if you watch my last video, the senses of the human body, as it describes just how many different vibrations make up your being. It includes every atom holding its own consciousness, which allows for it to choose whether it is harmoniously in balance with the vibration the collective human wishes to vibrate at, or choose not to be part of the collective and choose disresonance, which causes splits, fragmentations, those types of things within the energy, and therefore causes many different pulls in different directions. So the DNA is a manifestation of vibrations which are already there, being experienced and further produced by our perception. I'd like you to imagine, for a better connection and understanding of the very consciousness DNA within you, the imagery of an ecosystem, as I had mentioned before. The Earth, as a sentient being, holds many different ecosystems within it. This includes the layers of ground, animals, plants, all the way to the elements at play. Earth accepts and has to acknowledge every singular part of it as its own part, needing its own needs and wants in order for it to be in harmony and connected with the greater Earth at large, the greater being. If all parts, including the trees and the animals, are in harmony, this will equal harmony for the greater Earth. It's connected and well maintained. But if Earth is suppressing trees or animals, anything from expressing any part of themselves, vibrationally, this throws everything off. Small bits fall out of resonance vibrationally, and therefore a cause and effect happens, creating a further disresonance of the entire being of Earth. Through that one tiny part, as soon as it comes out of disresonance, the entire thing is no longer in resonance. And so the larger Earth begins to disintegrate if it's not in resonance. All the tiny parts that made it Earth, the larger collective, could survive only because of those tiny parts. So, in the same turn, we as a sentient being are a collective of smaller ecosystems. So, we are responsible for all the tiny ecosystems within us. These are the atoms, these are the bacteria, these are every organ, all of these things. This includes all their needs, wants, and dislikes. Each part is necessary and does not deserve to be suppressed or rejected. Emotionally, thought-wise, as well as our physical needs. This doesn't mean being a victim to your emotions or thoughts, etc., but rather you see why these needs exist in the first place, and you begin on a journey of self-discovery where the things that you only wanted because others did, they begin to fall away, and rather that which you truly wanted all along. Not the subconscious backdoor way of getting the things that we want, but the direct facing of our needs and wants is what brings us healing and harmony to the collective on both the microcosm and the grand scale. For many of us, I can understand not wanting to accept something that you have thought has been wrong, shameful, or sinful even. But this is where I ask you to begin to question everything. It is not wrong to desire love, or want our sexual needs met, or have our emotional needs understood and be valid, even if they aren't always true. It is as if we were to say someone is wrong for wanting something to eat or water to be hydrated. We have needs, physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. It is when we believe we cannot have them or that we cannot get our needs met when issues and disresonance begin to arise. Easiest way to see this play out is imagine someone settling into a relationship with someone who is not compatible because they think they will not find someone who is. Relationship issues grow in this relationship because neither are compatible. Both parties are suppressing their true actual needs. In this dynamic, both parties will use manipulative backdoor ways to get their needs met. Through this, the idea of not getting our needs met and having to be manipulative will be ingrained into the DNA through a learned behavior. As, of course, DNA is a sentient and conscious being itself that is always taking in and outputting information. And due to this, it will pass along this information through offspring if it is never rewritten and handled consciously with love. With all this being said, the way in which you experience what we call life, from the perspective of how to why to what you are experiencing, all of this is what truly makes up the genetics we call DNA. And these are passed down from our consciousness so we can therefore be conscious of these things, to experience them and learn. It is all source being incarnated and the beliefs in the physical continuing on. We are not subjected to the things of family history just because, quote unquote. Instead, we are powerful beings who are able to reprogram the DNA by consciously bringing attention to it. This is why it continues to show itself. The DNA itself is always trying to heal, as its pure intention is to live in harmony, not disresonative, which it has been genetically laboratory changed to be at. It is trying to heal, and this is through our conscious attention to its needs and wants. Love, by taking one in as itself, heals the DNA by allowing it to feel okay to exist and heal. It too has trauma from the energies who genetically altered our DNA. Distrust is not a true thought in the highest realm, yet is absolutely true for the lower dimensions. This is because polarities can exist even though the DNA exists with trust. It also exists with distrust. Sewn together like a string, it all links back to source in the highest realm. To close this off, it would be understood with polarities like these exist not only in the grand scale of universe, but in the genetic DNA makeup. In the two polarities of oneness, abundance and absolute harmony can exist as well as separation, disresonance at another level. Note, I am saying disresonance because the true desire of the highest consciousness is resonative, harmony. And to get to full resonance, one must fully understand itself inside and out. Funnily enough, through disresonance, it teaches how to come into harmony. Not being aligned is a manifestation of a perceptual lens, so appreciate the lower dimensions which hold this dense energy. This is a wonderful experience to undergo, to experience energy in a physical way and to have the power to alter energies at play. Through this, we can understand the vibrations that make up what we experience, like the energy of a phoenix rising from the ashes. This renewal and regenerative vibration can be used in its fullest here, to see the beauty in the pain and its purpose to show us more in the destruction. There is more to the darkness if we shine our conscious light on it. Let us alchemize the vibrations at play for the most harmony and resonance for the collective. Through the very simple and loving actions of being consciously present with ourselves, may you have an abundance of understanding and furthering of questions on your journey with this information. Our DNA was never against us, or our enemy we made it out to be. Rather, it has been our guide, showing us everything which we have already believed.